All right. Hello, folks. Welcome back to Eagles Power Hour. I am your host, Patrick Frakes. We are your official, unofficial Eastern Washington affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. A little congested today, guys, so bear with the sniffles. I was last time as well, but we're back. We're talking Eastern football, and we are brought to you by Walk On Apparel. We'll hear more from them later in the episode, but today we're here. We're previewing this matchup with Nevada. Um, you know, after the last two, looking at this after the Monmouth game, this absolutely looked like a very, very winnable FBS matchup for Eastern Washington. Nevada was a very, very poor team last year. They got beat by Idaho by like 40, 30 points early in the season when Idaho played there. And they were probably one of the worst FBS teams in the whole country last year. Probably wouldn't have been a top half Big Sky team if they were in the Big Sky last year. They're a program that hasn't had the greatest of success as of late, and so after last season, new coaching staff. Guess who the head coach for the Nevada Wolfpack is now? Familiar face, Jeff Choate, former Montana State Bobcat. He also was a coach at, I believe, Post Falls High School. He's a guy that's very familiar with Coach Best. And so, it's definitely an interesting matchup, kind of matching back up with Jeff Choate, who, weirdly enough, is kind of a guy that Eastern has had his number. If I'm remembering right, I don't know what the all time record was against Jeff Choate, but I can't remember. I don't remember losing to Montana State when he was at the helm there. He was kind of notorious for not being able to develop a quarterback, and so he had a guy like Troy Anderson, who is a linebacker for the Falcons now, literally being playing quarterback for him, and then lining up at DN later in the game. Crazy stuff, but it definitely was an interesting era of Montana State football with Jeff Choate as the head man. But moving on from that, Nevada, they're a solid team this year. They definitely are not a strong FBS G5 team. They're coming in to this game 1-3. I'll just share that really quick. So this is their schedule so far. They kind of choked away a win versus SMU. SMU ACC program now, I believe. Nevada had the lead going into the fourth quarter and just collapsed. SMU came back and won this game. Then they traveled down to Troy, and this was kind of a similar story actually. Nevada had a really good third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, they kind of had a little bit of a collapse and allowed Troy to bring it all the way within 2 points. And they were lucky enough to be able to stop the 2-point try to stop from forcing overtime. But you got to think if that went to overtime, Troy had all the momentum. They probably take that game. Georgia Southern. I don't know much about Georgia Southern, but this is again a game where Nevada had the lead for most of the first half, and then they just ended up losing it late into the second half. Minnesota, they just kind of got dominated. They were able to hold Minnesota to only 27 points. It's a Big Ten team, and they're supposed to be, not completely awful. I don't think in the Big Sky. I could be wrong. I don't know much about the Big Ten at all. I don't pay attention to them anymore after what happened. But Nevada is definitely not the dumpster fire that they were last year. However, talent wise, this team gives me vibes of a Sacramento State. A team that would be kind of middle to like a good Big Sky team. Not like a dominant, like I don't think they're on the same level as a Montana State or Montana or an Idaho. But, I could see them being a similar level to like a UC Davis or a Sac State, Sac State's kind of on the rise, but that's kind of what their talent level and what their program reminds me of a little bit right now. When I just watch the film, they kind of remind me of a Sac State type team. Um, and Jeff Choate he's a defensive guy and he wants to run the football. And that's kind of what we're seeing with this Nevada team. They're running the ball probably about 2-1 to the pass. It's a little skewed from that Minnesota game where they threw the ball more than they typically would. And so they seem to want to run the ball 2 times for every one passing attempt. Is kind of what I've gathered, but it's not really like a power run per se. It's more of a finessey run, in the sense that they like to kind of spread you out a little bit and run in those creases. It's been relatively successful for them. Nothing like they haven't really gashed anyone very bad yet this year, but there were moments in the Troy game, which is the only game I was able to find or watch, just with what I have for packages and TV packages and stuff. It was the only game I was able to find, and there was moments in that Troy game where they were just unstoppable on the ground. It was definitely kind of a like they would get stuffed a couple times and then they'd break a bigger run. Um, and I think that's kind of how that spread type of run defense is gonna or run offense is gonna go. They also they like to uh, they like to run like their quarterback Brendan Lewis. We'll cover this more in just a minute, but they like to run a three running back backfields out of shotgun, like a full house three running back backfield, and spread out the two receivers, and then they'll run a lot of triple option type stuff, which we'll get more into their offensive scheme there, but just generally they're run the football defensive built team. That's the blueprint that they're following. Are they totally there yet? I don't think so. I don't think they're there yet to the point where they can kind of impose their will on teams on the ground. Similar, like they're not a power run team yet. They're more of that finesse run type of team. This is like if you're playing NCAA and you take over a new team on day one, and they have a quarterback that can run, a lot of read option, and a lot of simple stuff that can get you a few yards, and so you can build some drives. But that was the big points in terms of just kind of a style of team they are. In the Mountain West so far, they're kind of right in the middle of all of the statistical things for the teams. Which I mean, the Mountain West doesn't seem like a very strong conference this year. Just generally, that's kind of the vibe I've gotten from the conference as a whole. They've dropped a couple games to Big Sky teams. I don't think they are. I don't think they are one of the really tough G5 conferences this year. But I mean, I could be wrong. It could just be the Big Sky's pretty good, but um, they definitely haven't been dominating the Big Sky by any means so far through a couple of out of conference games. One kind of interesting stat that I saw. This is kind of a battle of two very heavily penalized teams. Eastern is the most penalized team in the whole Big Sky per like yards per game, total yards and total penalties. Uh, and Nevada is right there. I think they're like one from the worst. They're penalized a decent amount in terms of like let me find it really quick. Let's see. Penalty of yeah, they average 9 penalties a game for it doesn't show the average per game, but they've given up 349 yards, which is right there with San Diego State as kind of the worst in terms of yards. They're a little bit of a chippy team from what I saw against Troy, but I think that comes with Jeff Choate. He's a fiery guy, so uh, I don't have a problem with it necessarily, but that's kind of who Nevada is. Um, it'll be interesting. I hope that there's not too many penalties because that just makes a game brutal to watch. But it would be nice to see Eastern not be on the negative side of the penalty battle, which they seem to have been a lot this year. Too many 15-yarders, man. Anyways, moving on. So we're gonna go through just some of the big contributors on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they run kind of a hybrid 3-4-4-3. It's very similar to what Coach Sanders is kind of trying to run. Maybe if you've watched UC Davis, that's a similar style. They typically have 3 down linemen, and then you'll have 1 or 2 outside linebackers in that 3-4 style come up and play as a fourth or fifth D lineman. just depending on the look, depending on the front, depending on what package they're in. They'll flop between 4-man fronts and 5-man fronts and 3-man fronts. They like to bring pressure to get to the passer. They haven't necessarily blown me away with their ability to rush the passer without pressure. But they do have a few guys that have a couple TFLs. They do have some talented edge rushers. But for me, I think this team is centered around, at least defensively, they're centered around their linebacker talent. Two of their linebackers have made some really nice plays. Drew Watts, I believe he's number 4 for them. I'm not totally sure. He's averaging 8 tackles a game, and I believe he's like second in the Mountain West so far in terms of tackles per game and total tackles. He's been a baller so far this year. Uh, he's not number 4. He might be number 7. I can't quite remember. But the other linebacker, I think he's number 36, a dude with long hair. I'm assuming an Islander type guy. He has a long name that I cannot pronounce. Something like Tongayaki Mate Ialona, something like that. He has a long hair, number 36 linebacker. He's second in the Mountain West in TFLs this year. I didn't write down the number, but he's been a really good player for them. He's very aggressive linebacker, making a lot of plays in the backfield, which is gonna have to get hands on those backers. I think their linebacker talent is definitely the strength of this team. They also have a very good edge rusher, and another Samoan name that I can't pronounce. Single digit number. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it. So I apologize if that's disrespectful, but dude, I can't try that. Then they do also have a couple DBs averaging a number of tackles per game. The most important one, I think, would be Katon Crawford, safety. He's averaging 5.5 tackles per game. He's up there in the high tackle leaders in the conference as well, in the Mountain West, anyways. And they're solid defense. Are they a brick wall defense? No. I think they're kind of built similar to, like I said, like a Davis, like a hell, even what Eastern wants to do is they're trying to get penetration. They're trying to stuff, they're trying to make plays and make TFLs. They're not going to be a brick wall defense. They're not necessarily like a bend but don't break type of defense, from what I kind of saw. And one thing to note with this defense is the secondary does seem just a little porous. I think that's kind of where the weakness of this Nevada team is in the secondary. It seems like there's a lot of green grass, and you typically do a pretty good job tackling. It's just other quarterbacks have been able to move the ball decently through the air on Nevada. They haven't necessarily like killed Nevada through the air, but I think if you're trying to pick, hey, is the run game going to be more effective or is the pass game going to be more effective? I would lean towards the pass game, just based on what I've seen and what I've kind of seen through the stats, seen through the film. That seems like the more weak unit to me. But I mean, like Troy was able to run the ball and Nevada a decent amount. Like it not by any means is a brick wall defensive front, but their defensive front is definitely more the strength of the team than or defense than the back end. Offensively, this is kind of the more interesting matchup for me. Like Eastern's going to be able to move the ball to an extent. Like that, they always are able to move the ball to an extent. It's just really for Eastern. It's just, can they punch the ball in, and can they extend? Can they chill at the 3 and outs and give our defense a little bit of a break? But uh, moving on to the offensive side of things, which, like I said, more of the more interesting things. So, you know, um, Coach Choate was always kind of famous in the Big Sky for just not being able to develop a quarterback, and he kind of was gifted a pretty athletic, talented quarterback when he took this Nevada job. Brendan Lewis, he's number 2. He I can't remember what year he is, but he's a very athletic quarterback. He's more of a runner than he is a passer. He's up there in the rushing totals in the conference. And I wouldn't compare him to Tommy Mellott per se, but he reminds me a little bit of a Caden Bennett, as in He's a very good runner, and he through the air, he has a good arm, and he has a relatively accurate arm, but he's gonna kind of throw a few up 4 grabs per game. When you look at his stats, I mean his touchdown to interception ratio through 4 games is 5-3. He's he hasn't. I think he's around 600 yards passing, which is like it's okay. He's averaging like just over 100 to 150 yards per game, which is like it's okay, but it definitely isn't spectacular, and it definitely isn't the strength of his game is through the air. He's absolutely a run first quarterback, and they'd love to run triple option with Brendan Lewis. He will carry the ball 10 to 15 times in this game, I'm sure, maybe 20 if they're able to have a lot of success, like I think they might be able to. So it'll be interesting to see that matchup of the Eagle defense versus Brendan Lewis and that rushing attack by Nevada. They're gonna be pretty aggressive with the run game. He has 54 carries for 270 yards through 207, not 270, 207 yards through 4 games. Like I said, solid arm, much better runner. He's definitely going to be probably threat number 2 on the ground behind this 3-headed monster at running back that they like to use. So, I think they kind of have like a 1A, 1B, and then a 2 option at running back, but all 3 of them will be on the field at the same time at some point. That it seems to be something they like to do. If that's what your team is talented at, with it, like if that's where the talent is on your team, then screw it, do it, man. They have Savion Red. I believe he's number 6. He's their kind of all-purpose versatile back. He's led them in the rushing game so far through 4 games. He's 5th in the Mountain West Conference. He has 277 yards. Very versatile back. He had a really good game. I think he had 112 yards on the ground at Troy. It seems like every game they have a different guy kind of step up and be the leading rusher. But I think Savion Red is kind of their if they had to pick of the 3 guys who they think is the one, I think he is the one. Then you have the guy that makes me really nervous, Patrick Garlow III. He is a big body back. I think he's only rushed for just over 100 yards on the year, but he is built pretty similar to Antonio Martin of Southeastern Louisiana. He's a very strong back, kind of a one cut and go type of guy. Not the fastest of all time, but he's quick, good feet, and he's just big. And so he, I think, might be the guy that they go to after watching that Seeloff film. And they might try to kind of pound it down Eastern's throat with him. So it'll be interesting to see who kind of gets the bulk of the carries. And then they have Sean Dollars. I believe he's an Oregon transfer. He's more of an explosive back. He hasn't seen the carries necessarily that the other 2 backs have seen, but he definitely has shown like the talent on film. He just hasn't had the volume yet of the other 2 guys. Not a name to write off. He reminds me more of that other back that rushed 9 times for like 90 yards in Sela. One of those guys that is one cut and 20 yards down the field. So definitely a 3-headed monster. 2 or 3 of them will be on the field a lot together. So, just something to keep an eye out for. They have a pretty solid young offensive line. I think they have a freshman starting at left guard, and they look pretty good run blocking. They're not like dominant in terms of like getting really good push, but they're athletic and they're able to get out there and get hands on people and just give their backs a crease. That's kind of what I've seen. They don't necessarily like blow you off the ball. From what I've seen, they just are really good about making their blocks and getting their assignments done, giving their backs a chance, and it's resulted in decent. It's produced decent results. Nothing spectacular necessarily, but I think they're looking at this Eastern matchup and saying, "Hey, this is a get right game for our offensive line." Because I mean, after watching the Sealaw film, like that's what I would be thinking if I'm, another offensive line. I'm thinking, oh, let's get our run game going. And so you got to think that that's where they're going to be looking. But more of a finesse offensive line from what I saw than like a powerful running blocking. But they're definitely stronger run blocking than they are pass blocking. Um, you know, uh, Lewis had been under a little bit of pressure this year when he did drop back, but it's rare that he drops back, and it's not like a one or two reads and go type of thing. So, uh, you know, I think if I'm Nevada, I'm not too worried about pass protection. I'm much more worried about running the football and staying ahead of the chains, which is what they like to do. Um, at tight end, they have Jace Henry. He's a 6'4", 270-pound Alaskan. He's definitely a blocking first type of tight end. They kind of use him how we used Austin York as like kind of a hybrid tight end, fullback, H-back, kind of all over the place tight end that'll line up in the backfield, that'll line up on the line, that'll line up as a wing, all kinds of things. But definitely a blocking first guy. He has 7 receptions, 49 yards, but like similar to how we use our tight ends in at Eastern, in my opinion. Uh, Receivers, I mean, the receivers don't get crazy volume, but there's definitely some talent there. They have 6'6" Jaden Smith, who is their leading receiver as of now in terms of yards. He's 241 yards on the year. He's been kind of a big play threat for them. Kind of a Talolo Limu Jones type of build. If you want a comparison, tall, lanky receiver that's kind of a vertical threat, can go up and get the ball, but they also throw screens to him every once in a while, and he's able to get yardage on those as well. Very talented player. I think he could be a really good player in the future. Cortez Braham has been kind of their all-around receiver. He leads the team in targets. He has 227 yards in the year. It's kind of similar. They got 3 guys that have kind of similar usage. There's definitely not like a favorite target per se. The third guy, don't remember his name. He has like there's 1 and 2 that have about similar production. The third guy has like about half the production that those guys have. Those are the main 3 receivers. They don't usually throw like 4 or 5 receivers on the field, but they could. It's absolutely on the table. I think the matchup there is just, can Eastern stop the run at all? Because they're very creative in the way that they do things, but I think they run a read option or a triple option a good, at least a good 30% of the time. They're going to be doing a read option, and they do it out of all these crazy looks. They have a full house backfield with, 1 running back here, 1 running back here, 1 running back behind, and they're in pistol, full house backfield, triple option out of that. They do triple option out of a split backfield. They'll do triple option with the receiver that's in the slot. They'll do triple option by motioning a receiver or a running back that was lined up as a receiver. He'll motion over, and then they'll run read option with that. They got all kinds of creative option looks, kind of like a Montana State kind of offense pre Tommy Malott staying healthy campaign that they've been doing this year. But Eastern's got to stop the run, man. And after last week, I'm a lot less optimistic about the run defense, because I was a little I don't know, I was a little bit nervous about the run D when our run D coordinator from last year, when we were one of the worst run Ds in the conference, comes back, and now he's the D coordinator, and it's like, well, hopefully we can stop the run, but we didn't last year with this guy coaching, and I just there was definitely promise by the run D in those first 2 games, despite not being the greatest performance ever at Drake. Obviously, not a good performance at all. It was more of the secondary that had their woes, and man, Sela just dominated on the ground, man. And so it'll definitely be a tough matchup, but I think the offense has to be able to move the ball, and Eastern has to be able to get a couple key stops. I think is a big deal here. But before we go any further, before we go into the keys in the game and kind of our Patty's Picks preview segment around the Big Sky, we need to talk about our sponsor, Walk On Apparel. Shout out to Walk On Apparel. They're awesome. The Eagles Power Hour is sponsored by Walk On Apparel. Walk On Apparel focuses on capturing EWU's culture and traditions in apparel designs that are as different as they are affordable. Plus 10% of the profit from every single sale gets donated right back to the EAF, the Eagle Athletic Fund. That's a win for you and your alma mater. EPH listeners get 10% off Eastern gear at checkout using code EPH10. That's EPH10. Eagles Power Hour gets a little bit of a kickback from that, as well as the school itself, the EAF, and you're supporting a local business. Go check them out. New designs drop throughout the season, so check out walkon-apparel.com or follow them on Twitter and Instagram to see what's dropping next. Walkon-apparel.com, up the fans. I will have them linked down below. Go check them out. They have some cool Eastern t-shirts. I definitely love my Walk On Apparel stuff. I have some Eastern stuff. I have some Idaho stuff. But definitely go check them out. Moving on, keys to the game of this Nevada Eastern matchup. I think, offensively, we'll hit defensively first. Defensively first is just Eastern has to stop the run. It has to stop the run. Brendan Lewis has not necessarily shown the ability to win games with his arm. Through a year and a half of film, he has not shown that ability yet. And so I think priority number one this week has to be, hey, load the damn box and stop the run. Make Lewis make plays. I think our secondary is good enough to not have to worry about, being out of position if we're in man coverage and stuff. I would be totally fine running cover one most of this game and just loading the box, stopping the run. That's what I would ideally want to see, honestly, as kind of a scheme thing, a scheme preference. But, we will see. I'm sure Eastern's still going to run their two high safeties, which sometimes drive me insane when we're playing a run-first team like a Southeastern Louisiana or like a, Nevada. So we'll see. We'll see how Eastern comes out, but they have to stop the run. Our safeties have to be triggering on the run early. We have to get off blocks. Because they don't necessarily drive guys really far, their offensive line anyways. Our linebacking core has to get off blocks. Defensive line has to stuff some things up because I think our defensive line is pretty good. I really do think there's talent there. Really unfortunate that Jacob Newsom looks like he might be out for a while, but Isaiah Perez had a solid game. Matt Brown is a good player. You have Justice Luwalu and Jaira Leah Pipitele. Like, these are all big, talented dudes that can stuff up the middle. Our edge guys need to step it up a little bit. Brock Harrison had a decent game, but some of the backup guys just couldn't keep contained in the last game. And so I think as a team in the box, we got to play better than we did last week. Hopefully we're getting healthy from that stupid stomach flu that's been killing guys. But stop the damn run has to be theme number one. I hope they have that on a giant freaking whiteboard in the locker room. I hope they have it. They're yelling it at practice. Stop the damn run. Offensively, the offense has been kind of underwhelming the last 2 weeks. It felt like they just weren't quite clicking on all cylinders, at least in my opinion. And so, thing number one for me is I want to see the offense stay on schedule. I don't want to see negative plays early in drives. I don't want to see negative plays early in downs. I want to see them run the ball. I mean, we have been able to effectively run the ball on every team we've played, and to an extent. Last week Tuna really struggled running the ball. I don't know what was up with him. He just didn't look the same that he did against Drake and against Monmouth. And so that was a little disappointing. But the holes were there. And Malik Dotson played really well and hit those holes. And he had a good game rushing. He was averaging 4 yards a carry. I would love to see Eastern just, hey, play one, just give it the damn dive, give him a damn wrap, give him a damn buck sweep, and just run the ball for 3-4 yards, shorten the chains, and make it an easier play. Make life easier in second and third down, because Eastern is built on quick screens, but it feels like we were getting blown up on all the quick screens, and it's becoming a little predictable, the quick screens, because every time we line up in a bunch, it's either a screen or a screen, a fake screen, and goes or fade routes or something. And I mean, even my dumb football brain can figure that out. So I mean, I like the screen stuff, but I want to see us be able to run the ball and get ahead in the chain, get ahead of the chains all game. Point number two, let Kikoa cook, dude. Like I'm tired of seeing Kikoa only get one read in his pass progression. Like feels like a lot of the time when Kikoa drops back, it's a lot of either you have one or two deep routes, or it's a one read. If it's not their run. And I think Kikoa is a guy that can have success with that. It's just teams are so disciplined in keeping Kikoa in the pocket that when it's not there, Kikoa has to roll outside, and then that leads to sacks, that leads to turnovers, and that leads to bad things. And it hasn't led to turnovers yet this year, but it will if we don't clean that up. So I would like to see Kikoa have a few more, longer progressions. I think our offensive line can give him the time that he needs. Um, I feel like they have this year. It's not like Hiko has like dealt with a ton of pressure necessarily. I think he's just a little bit off. At least like we're just a little bit off from him really becoming like a really good quarterback. He's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the probably I think he has been the most efficient quarterback in the country, completion percentage wise, through 3 games. So um, let him cook, man. I'm okay with throwing a turnover every once in a while if it means we're gonna have some plays down the field. Because like seeing that Noah Cronquist bomb absolutely just fired me up last week, because it's like finally they let him throw the ball down the field. So I really that's what I really want to see this week is let Kiko throw the ball down the middle. Let him throw the ball deep a little bit and medium to deep distances, because I know he struggled with that, but how is he supposed to get better if he doesn't get to do it and get more experience doing it? So and then the third thing, keys to the game, the offense has to score off of defensive stops. In the C-Log game, it felt like every time Eastern would get a big stop, we just couldn't get it going offensively, and we couldn't carry that momentum on. Like Eastern would get a huge stop, like even earlier in the game when it's 7-0, Eastern got a stop, and then we go 3-and-out and give the ball right back to them. And it's like, man, if we could score off of our defensive stops and build a lead a little bit, build a 14-0 lead like we did in the Monmouth game, if we could build a little bit of a lead, especially against a run-first team like this, uh, I like our chances, guys. I really like our chances in this game. I think talent-wise, this game is a wash. I don't think Nevada is a supreme talented team. I don't think they're way more talented than Eastern is, which is not normal for like an FBS matchup. I think Eastern, I'm not going to say Eastern has the edge talent wise, but I think Eastern has the edge in terms of like, I, Eastern has more experience as a team. Eastern is a more experienced team overall, at least offensively. I don't know about defensively, but um, I think the talent battle is pretty dang close. I think it's a wash, and I think Eastern. This becomes down to how do these guys play, one, and two, coaching. So, we'll get into that, into my prediction for how this game goes in just a second. But I really just want to see the offense take advantage of momentum, take a turnover and go score, take a defensive stop and go score, take a turnover on downs and go score, build momentum, build a lead, so that it's not this up and down adventure of offense that it's been the last 2 weeks. But yeah, another thing, just be disciplined, Eastern. Like, just chill with the penalties. This other team, like Nevada, likes to have a lot of penalties too. I'm tired of the 15-yarders. Please chill with the 15-yarders. And one kind of interesting note, I kind of hit on it early, is Nevada has kind of choked away games. Three of their 4 games, they had leads kind of deep into the second and third quarter, and they lost 2 of those 3 games. And one of those games they probably should have lost. When you look at, I mean, Troy totally drove it right down the field with a minute and a half left, scored, and then they flubbed the snap on the 2-point conversion. And so I really think Eastern, Nevada and Eastern have been similar in the fact that like neither of them have played very good in the second half. I mean, Nevada had a really good third quarter against Troy, but like neither team has been their best version of themselves in the second halves, offensively or defensively. And so I really want to see. I think that's a place where Eastern's experience offensively should be taking over and should be giving Eastern an advantage to be able to score in this game late. Um, that I really want to see that. I'm really sick of 3 points in the second half, 7 points in the second half, and just not looking excellent in the second half. I just want to see. I want to see the offense clicking. I want to see the offense building momentum, and I think Eastern can win this game. I think Eastern has the talent to win this game. Do they have the coaching and do they have the execution to win this game? That's the question. But let's really quick. We're gonna move on to probably one of my favorite segments of the week now is Patty's picks. We're gonna talk around the Big Sky, talk about the Big Sky really quick, quick 10-15 minutes, and we'll be out of here. So and we'll pick the Eastern score, what I think is gonna happen at the end of this. So last week Montana State was on a bye. This week they host Mercyhurst. Never heard of Mercyhurst. They're a first-year transitioning FCS program. They moved up from Division II. They're in the Northeastern Conference, so the NEC up there was St. Francis, and I think who else is up there? Central Connecticut State is up there, up in the top right corner of the U.S. That not a very good conference, not a very strong program. Montana State wins that one big. Weber State Weber State goes to Northwestern State, a Southland Conference team that their season was tragically ended early last year after I believe a player on their team was murdered. A really unfortunate situation, but their program that is really kind of down in the dumps right now. Not a very good program. Weber State's coming off a tough loss at Lamar. I think Lamar is a lot better team than we maybe expect. Another Southland Conference team. Weber probably should have won that game. They had two opportunities to go win that game and just kind of shit the bed is how I would put it. But Lamar actually looked pretty dang good. I'm not mega worried about Weber State. I think Weber State wins this one big. I know Weber State fans are a little not feeling too hot right now, but I think Weber State will be fine. I think for them, this is hey, let Richie Munoz throw the ball down the field. Similar story to Kiko. Let Richie Munoz cook and just see what happens. Moving on from that game, Weber State wins big. Portland State goes to Boise State. I'm not even going to talk about this one for very much. Portland State's game last week was canceled due to whooping cough. They let South Dakota travel all the way to Portland, and then they canceled the game. It was pretty kind of a messed up situation. Now South Dakota is affected pretty negatively by that. It's one less FCS winner on their resume. They're a team that wants to be a top 5 seed. So kind of brutal on Portland State's part. I hope Boise State smokes them. I don't like Boise State. I went to Idaho for 2 years. I don't like Boise State, but I think they smoke Portland State. I don't like Portland State. Davis hosts Utah Tech. Utah Tech sucks. Last week, they got smoked by NIU. UC Davis, they last week played, who'd they play? They went to Southern Utah, and it was a really fun, close, competitive game, actually. But to me, Davis kind of dominated that game between the 20s. And then, once they got down to the red zone, they just couldn't quite punch it in. I've been hitting on this a lot this year. Davis's offensive line just doesn't look quite as dominant as it has been in the past, and so they've struggled punching the ball in the end zone a little bit. And so they have ended up with a lot of field goals in situations where they drove right down the field, got to like the 15-yard line, and then couldn't move the ball after that. Larson hasn't been quite as impressive on the ground as he was last year, but he still is a stud. He had like 180 all-purpose yards last week. He still is probably looking like the front runner of Offensive Player of the Year in the Big Sky to me. So I think Davis blows them out by a lot. Sac State goes to Texas A&M Commerce. Sac State, they finally pulled the trigger and they just played Carson Conklin the whole game last week. They benched Caden Bennett, and oh boy, that Sac State offense looked really good. They're running the ball well. They played Nichols last week, they're a playoff team last year. They're not like a good playoff team, but they're a playoff team last year, Southland Conference champ. They are a ranked team last week. And man, Sac State looked really good. They had like 9 TFLs last week. Defense looked nasty. The run defense looked nasty. Sac State looked like they figured something out, and they look like they might be hopping a couple spots up people's ballots if they continue to play like that. I think Sac State. It'll be an interesting test for them. A&M Commerce is very much a pass first team, and Sac State's defense hasn't looked excellent in through the air. But I think Sac State wins this one by 3 or 4 scores. I think A&M Commerce will be able to move the ball a little bit, but they're not gonna be able to hold up against the Sac State pass rush, in my opinion. I think Sac State will win this one. They'll win this one handedly. Commerce will put up more of a fight than people realized for a couple quarters, and then Sac will pull away. Southern Utah at Idaho State. This is kind of an interesting one. I think Southern Utah might beat them. Southern Utah is not the same Southern Utah team that they were years ago when they were in the Big Sky. They're kind of a pushover team a lot of the time. Now they're definitely a program on the rise. They look to be a decent squad. I wouldn't put them as a top. I wouldn't put them as like a championship contender by any means, but they're definitely a program on the rise, similar to that Lamar squad that beat Weber State last week. But Southern Utah, they gave Davis pretty much all they could handle last week, and came up short. But now they're going to Idaho State. They're going to Pokey. Weird things happen in the Pokey Dome, but I think Southern Utah wins this. I think the Southern Utah is just a better team right now. Idaho State last week went to Grand Forks, North Dakota to play the UND Fighting Hawks, and UND smoked them. UND looked like a very, very good team, and Idaho State looked like a very, very bad team, very unprepared team. Idaho State, I think the quarterback competition is definitely open again. Kobe Tracy kind of took that job. He was a Utah Tech transfer. And then now he got benched during the game. Hunter Hayes came in, threw a couple touchdowns, and now the quarterback competition is completely open again. They had played 4 quarterbacks in the last few games, and they're on their 3rd different starting quarterback, probably, if Kobe Tracy doesn't start this game. If Hunter Hayes starts this game, they're on their 3rd different starting quarterback, not due to injury. So things aren't looking great for the throw-in Idahoans, but I think Southern Utah goes in there and beats them by, I don't know, 14, 15 points. Idaho goes to Abilene Christian. This is an interesting game to me. I think a lot of people have been voting Idaho as the number 1 team in the country. Idaho absolutely smoked Albany last week. I actually went to that game. It was incredible. They smoked Albany. Albany was bad. And Idaho was able to run the ball despite offensive line issues. They will throw the ball a little bit despite being on their 2nd string quarterback who's injured. So, Idaho looks pretty dang good. They're definitely a top 5 team in the country. Probably I've been voting them number 2 in my Big Sky Conference poll, but Power Rankings poll, but a number of people have been voting them number 1. National people have been voting them number 1 in the country. They look pretty good. That Vandal defense is legit, but Abilene Christian has a quarterback, and this will probably be the best quarterback Idaho has faced since Dylan Gabriel, and that is Maverick McIver of Abilene Christian. He led the FCS in passing for 2 weeks, and then last week he had kind of a shaky performance against Northern Colorado, but I kind of think Matthew McIver might be able to move the ball a little bit. I don't think he's going to be able to like torch the Idaho defense by any means. Idaho's defense is way too good for that, but I think he's good enough to move the ball and nickel and dime the ball down the field, kind of how you have to against Idaho's defense. And I think he's good enough to do that and put up at least 22 points, 17 points, more than other teams that, I don't think. I think McIver might be the best quarterback that Idaho plays maybe all year, depending. Trying to think. Tommy Mellott, they'll play Tommy Mellott, but Tommy Mellott's not a very good passer. Uh, I think that they play Miles Hastings. Miles Hastings is up and down. I think Matthew McIver might be the best player they play, quarterback they play until the end of the year, until the playoffs, anyways. And so it'll be interesting to see the matchup. I think Idaho wins a close-ish game, but Abilene. Idaho's defense is too good, I think, to give up more than 25 points to Abilene Christian, and I don't know if Abilene Christian's defense is that incredible either. I think it might be a game that they try to kind of expand the passing game a little bit for Jack Wagner and let him throw the ball a little bit. But they're going to want to run the ball. They're going to want to chew up the clock. I think Idaho wins a close game. Something like I don't know, 25-19, something goofy like that. Western Carolina goes to Montana. I think this is probably game of the week in the Big Sky, unless you pick Nevada or the Eastern Nevada game. I think, or Idaho at Abilene, Western Carolina at Montana, and Eastern at Nevada are probably the three games of the week in the Big Sky. Western Carolina is kind of a similar story to Abilene Christian, as in they got a quarterback and they go as the quarterback goes. Montana had a big time bounce back performance last week against who'd they play? I think they played Morehead State. Morehead State is not good. Pioneer League team, not good. Montana beat them 59-2. They ran the ball really effectively. And they look good. Defense looked good. Everything looked good for them. But coming out that North Dakota, North Dakota looks like a really good team. I'm starting to think North Dakota might just be a really good team. Montana's not necessarily that bad. But the concern with Montana, I think it is the offensive line. And the defense just hasn't looked quite as elite as it has been in the years past. It's in terms of yardage, I think. Like North Dakota was able to move the ball pretty effectively on them. And you haven't seen that in a while. But I think this game comes down to how Cole Gonzalez and the Western Carolina offensive line plays. If Cole Gonzalez can get the ball out, be responsible with the ball, and make plays, not turn the ball over, I think Western Carolina has a legit shot. Cole Gonzalez is probably the best quarterback in one of the best quarterbacks in the FCS. I won't say he's the best, but one of the best quarterbacks in the FCS. And they really go as Cole Gonzalez goes. So if he has a crazy game, and it's similar to how I believe Jacob Tracy is his name, the quarterback for Mo State had, Western Carolina could be in this game the whole time. But I have a hard time seeing Western Carolina run the ball on Montana. They might be able to, but if they get too pass happy, Montana's really going to be able to pin their ears back, and that's where I get a little concerned about Western Carolina. I think Montana wins this game. I think it's going to be one of those things. It's like if Cole Gonzalez plays well, this is a very close game. If Cole Gonzalez is getting sacked and throwing picks, this game's a blowout. I kind of tend to think it's going to be more on. I kind of want to pick Western Carolina here, just because I could see it happening. But since the Grizz lost that game to North Dakota, I don't see them underestimating this team, and I think the Grizz win this one. I think they probably pull away later in the game and make this like a 3-possession game late. This will be similar. I think this is going to be similar to like the South Dakota State versus Incarnate Word matchup earlier in the year, where Western Carolina looked like they belong for 2 quarters and then Montana pulls away. Could be interesting to see if they run the ball enough or not, Montana. But onto the Eastern matchup. Man, it's gonna be a tough game. I think it's a tough matchup in terms of styles. It's tough for an Eastern defense that looks like they can't stop anything on the ground. That's last week, anyways. To be facing a absolute run first outfit that's gonna be pretty good. That makes me a little nervous, for sure. I think Nevada's gonna be able to run the ball kind of at will. So I think it's gonna be very important for Eastern's offense to score off of any kind of turnover they get. Anytime they get the ball with momentum, they have to go score. I think it's very important for Eastern's offense just to score. Like generally, they gotta put up points. I think they're going to be able to. I really do think they're going to be able to put up points. My question is, can they put up enough? Can the Eagle offense put up enough to keep up with the Nevada defense or the Nevada offense that I think is going to be able to put up? They're going to be able to get probably 5 yards of carry unless we see some schematic changes that I don't know if we'll see. So I'm going to go with the reverse jinx here, hopefully. I'm picking Nevada. I think, like I said earlier, I think this game, talent-wise, is a wash. But I think Eastern has a chance here. I think this is a close game. Eastern is Nevada is favored by 9 points in this game. I think Eastern covers that absolutely. But I'm picking Nevada in a 31-27 game. I think that's kind of how we're going to end up here. That's just what I see when I see the film, when I see the style matchups, when I see that type of stuff. That's what I think is going to happen. Do I want that to happen? Obviously, no. I want Eastern to beat them. But the last 2 or 3 weeks, 2 out of the last 3 weeks, I picked Eastern and did not go well. So I'm picking Nevada. We're gonna see if the reverse jinx works. But yeah, man, that's all we got this week for Eagles Power Hour and Patty's picks. Shout out again to Walk On Apparel. Go check out their t-shirts. Go check out their stuff. Supports small business, supports Eagles Power Hour, supports the Eagle Athletic Fund. Go check it out. But yeah, man, rooting for the Eagles this week. If you guys can get the Reno, get there, man. I hear it's a fun time. I hear it should be a fun environment, and man, of course you want to be there if Eastern's able to pull off the win against the FBS team. I think the odds are not great, but hey, it's absolutely possible. The talent is absolutely there for Eastern to win this game. Really hoping for it to happen. But anyways, guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you guys for watching and listening. And go Eagles.